So welcome everyone. My name is Gilda again, and I'm thrilled to have everyone here to join us as we walk through with the wonderful engineering team on Journey Builder Custom Activity. Um, we have a wonderful committee of MVPs and marketing champions, but before we jump into this awesome content that we're going to see today, I wanted to start off by first saying a huge thank you to all of you for being here today, especially with everything going on in the world. We know that this global crisis is affecting all of us in different ways, and we know that many, if not all of you, are settling into this new normal of working from home, maybe with kids, partners, and other loved ones. And with that, what I'd love to do is pass it back to Rade to kick things off.
Thank you, Gilda. Hi, everyone. I can't see anyone because I'm presenting my screen, but thank you for joining this morning or afternoon or night, depending on which time zone you're in. I'm one of the engineers that works on Journey Builder. There's a number of other folks from the engineering team who work on Journey Builder and Marketing Cloud today on this call. We're really looking forward to cover the content around the custom activity. So let's get started. I guess the first things first is this is forward-looking statement. It's a standard thing that Salesforce has, which is to say you should make purchasing decision for any software based on the software, not based on statements that are made about the future capabilities of the software. So always keep that in mind. That's as simple as that. We're not going to read this whole text. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time to talk about anything fun. So I'm going to skip. That's me. And Matt Hager is one of the other engineers on the team. Matt will present some portion of the slides, so him and I will go back and forth. We're looking forward to take your questions at the end. So let's get going. So we'll basically cover four things today. I will give you a little bit of context around Journey Builder. This speaks to a number of questions that many of you had asked when you were registering for this seminar. Then we'll talk about the custom activities, specifically what are they, why can you use one. We have a specific example that we picked that we'll walk through. So all of the slides are sort of tied to one example of a custom activity. And the interesting thing that we did is we just published a sample that you should have received in your email earlier today or yesterday that basically points you to a GitHub location where we have the sample. The neat thing is that the example that we're talking about in the slides speaks to what the sample does on GitHub. So in other words, as you're following along, you can basically go and start playing with the sample and it'll make it more fun. We'll talk about how the custom activities work. How do you basically create one? How do you register one with Journey Builder? How do you get everything set up? And then the last topic is we'll cover what we call production, but it's basically things like, okay, how do I test this? How do I make sure that the custom activity I built scales appropriately? How do I troubleshoot a problem? How do I deploy this? Where do I host it? And so on and so forth. So let's keep going in the interest of time. I want to get to the fun slides. So for this section, which is the Journey Builder and activities, I will go super fast because my assumption is that most of you are either intimately familiar with Journey Builder and Marketing Cloud or know enough that you don't have to get a very basic introduction. But with that said, let's talk a little bit about Journey Builder. So Journey Builder allows you to engage with customers on a personal level. It's basically marketing automation software. It allows you to have a personalized experience for a customer that you want to engage with. And here on the right side is basically you can see what the canvas looks like. At a high level, you basically get a number of contacts. We use the word contact for a customer of our customers. So for example, if you're a large brick and mortar store, right, you have customers that you want to reach. The customers that you want to reach in our world and in our software are referred to as contacts because they're your customers, they're not our customers, they're all contacts that we're processing for you. The other thing is, right, the software is capable of making decisions based on constantly updating information. This is probably one of the more magical aspects of Journey Builder, is that, you know, you can basically imagine that if we were just running with the example of the larger brick and mortar, right, you can say every morning at 8 a.m. I want to go get a list of everybody who logged into my website and put something in the shopping cart, but they didn't buy it. And then I want to segment them by maybe what department did they put something in, like the home and garden department or the electronics department. And then I want to send them a tailored email. So this idea of making a decision and segmenting your customers based on certain criteria that is relevant to you in the software is very powerful. The other thing that is powerful about the software is that it's capable of doing cross-channel reach to a customer. So you can reach a customer via email, via SMS, via push notification. And then lastly is you can optimize the outcomes, which is basically another way to say it is you can understand customer engagement and pivot your strategy on the fly as customers are flowing through the journeys by, you know, stopping the journey, creating a new version of a journey. So the last thing that I'll say on this slide is since probably many of us on this call are technical enough to think of it, is when I describe Journey Builder, typically to engineers who are considering joining our team and working on Journey Builder, is I tell people Journey Builder is a visual programming tool for a marketer without telling the marketer that it's a visual programming tool. So the sort of fundamental building block of a journey is an activity. And here's on the left side are some examples of activities. But an activity is basically an action in the journey that acts upon a contact as the contact flows through the journey. So the examples are, you know, like you can basically drag an activity on the canvas that sends an email or sends an SMS or sends a push notification. And then you can also do flow control. So you can basically say, let me split the contacts randomly, and 50% of them can, you know, get an email, and 50% of them can get a push notification, or 50% of them can get one kind of email, and 50% of them can get another kind of email. Right? That's another example. And the other thing is you can update the contact data. So you can basically, as the contact is flowing through the journey, you can say, okay, like I sent Rade an email. So I know I would like to record the fact that Rade got an email that then I can actually use that data later in the journey. With that said, like it's important for everyone on this call to understand the basic anatomy of an activity because this plays a role into once we start talking about a custom activity, because a custom activity is nothing more than an activity on the journey that has some special powers. So the sort of three important things about an activity is there is the in portions, which is the request that accept data from the journey in the contact model or other activities. So this is like the data that your activity gets from Journey Builder. Then the out data is basically the data that your activity returns back to Journey Builder. And then the act is basically the act of performing whatever the activity is intended to do. So this might be a little abstract, but this will be very, very, like we'll talk about the nuts and bolts of this when it comes to the custom activity in just a moment. So what is a custom activity and why would I want one? So basically, like, so Marketing Cloud is fairly capable software, right? So you can basically create a journey in Journey Builder today. You can send an email, you can send a push notification, you can segment your people, like everybody who bought red shoes yesterday should get this email versus that email. But then there's the question of, well, wait, what if I work, or what if I'm enabling a large brick and mortar store that has their own internal system for coupons, and like I want to send all of the customers an email with a unique coupon that actually my system generates. So it's like, that's not a functionality like that is native to Marketing Cloud. Obviously, Marketing Cloud does not have the ability to generate a unique coupon that is a part of your internal system. So then that's a perfect example for when would you use custom activity. And actually, what I just described is actually the example that we'll talk about. But sort of taking a step back, there's like 3 categories of things you can think about when you can think about like what can a custom activity do. The first thing is what we call channel integration. So the channel integration is simply like you can send an email, you can send a push notification through Marketing Cloud, but you can't send a tweet. So what if you wanted to send a tweet to your customer, right? Like that's an example of something that you can build with a custom activity. For control flow is, you can segment your customers based on all of the data that you have brought in. But what if you did not want to bring in the data that is very important for you to segment your customers in Marketing Cloud? So for example, let's say that you're a medical provider and because of various requirements around the globe for keeping patient data private, you do not want to save the information such as Rade's appointment with his doctor is tomorrow at 7 a.m. Right? But you need that information in a journey such that maybe you send the email to a reminder to Rade 3 hours before his appointment. So at some point in the journey, you have to go get the data from your system. And the data is then used in Journey Builder, but it's not actually persisted, so it's safe from that. So that's an example of control flow where you can say, is Rade, 6 hours away from getting having his appointment? If yes, send them an email. If not, wait. And then there's the inbound, the coupon codes is something that I just gave you as an example, and so the example that we'll talk about. And then there's obviously the outbound, which is sometimes you just want to have another external system to Marketing Cloud take note that something happened, right, to a contact in Journey Builder. So with that said, let's just briefly sort of orient ourselves with a specific example that we have that we're gonna run through. So imagine that we're a large brick and mortar retailer who wants to send a personalized coupon via email in Journey Builder and track the coupon's code redemption. So the basic idea is let's send everyone a 15% coupon, then let's wait a little bit, then let's see who are the people that like visited our website or bought something with the coupon, or how about this? Who are the people that visited our website but didn't buy anything? For those people, maybe after a day, let's send them a 25% coupon to motivate them to buy something. And then there you can imagine the various other paths, like what if they didn't use the coupon at all, or what if they didn't visit our website, and so on and so forth. So the basic setup is customer created a custom activity to send the contact to their coupon system. This is the external system from Marketing Cloud. Coupon system stores the coupon code for the customer and returns the individualized coupon code to the Journey Builder. Coupon code activity is followed by an email activity. So this is where we send them an email with the coupon. And then after 3 days, the custom split activity retrieves the status from the coupon system, indicating whether the subscriber redeems the coupon during the wait, and split the subscribers to take specific actions based on the redemption status of the coupon. This example is on GitHub, and this is what we're going to talk about. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to Matt, and Matt will kind of walk us through the nuts and bolts. Matt is the developer who wrote the sample, so we thought it's appropriate for him to do all the talking for this portion of the slides. With that, Matt, you can take it from here. And I think Matt needs to,
Yep. Hi, so I'm Matt Hager. I'm a developer on the Journey Builder team. I would really encourage everybody to go look at our example on GitHub. A lot of this is very pedantic in the way that things talk to one another, and can be kind of difficult to follow. And this presentation isn't necessarily meant to be able to allow you to create the activity just from this presentation. The GitHub link will will certainly show you how all of this is wired up, and from the GitHub link, you can actually deploy directly to Heroku, so you can get started very quickly with the link. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example in detail. So on this one, on this journey, we have a data extension that's being used to invoke the journey. And so what that is we have some group of people inside of a big list, and we're going to start them off with the journey. The first step here is we're going to issue them a 15% off coupon. So we go to our, so this is where the custom activity is. So the custom activity, the 15% coupon is part of our point of sale service system at our company X, right? So the custom activity is going to reach out to our point of sale service. It's going to say, hey, give me a 15% off coupon, and then it's going to return Journey Builder that data. Then we're going to email that 15% coupon to the customer. Then we're going to wait 3 days to see if they do anything. Then we're going to reach back out on the next activity, the code engagement activity. That again is a custom activity. It's going to reach out to our service, our point of sale system, and say, hey, here's the coupon code. Did the customer do anything with this coupon code? Did they view an item inside of our store? Did they add something to a cart and abandon the cart? Purchase an item? Or is there an invalid code for some reason? And then based off of that information, the point of sale service is going to, like our activity for the code engagement activity is going to instruct Journey Builder for the code that was handed to us, which one of those paths to go down. And so if they had no activity, we're just going to do nothing. Maybe we'll get them next time. If they viewed an item or abandoned a cart, we'll say, well, they didn't make a purchasing decision. That's great. Let's try and entice them some more. Let's give them a 25% off coupon and send them another email. And then if they purchased an item, we just say thank you. And then if they have an invalid code, we don't need to do that, so we just go away. And so that's the example. And the GitHub link will show you how all of the server-side communication and how all the configuration stuff works on that. So next, let's break down a custom activity into its kind of component parts. So you have 3 main sections to a custom activity. There's the config.json, and this is just a manifest that kind of shows, hey, here's where all the endpoints are, here's the name of the activity, here's the icon, a description. It allows you to internationalize stuff. Then it has the iframe for the custom activity. So this is how the actual configuration happens. And then next is the processing. So this is the actual server side systems integration portion of it. And so we're just going to walk through this in detail. So it's okay. So this is going to get kind of technical, and I swear we're going to kind of back up, and it's not going to be like this the entire time. So this is the kind of a quick snippet of the configuration, just to kind of point out some key elements to you. So the first is the type that you see there. And again, all of this is in the GitHub link. It makes a lot more sense when you kind of see it all together. So on the type, we're going to specify REST. And what this does is it instructs Journey Builder that we are going to reach out over HTTP to our service to get the information that's going to be happening in the activity. And on the example here, we're going to be looking specifically at the activity that issues the coupon code, so the discount code activity. The next is the execute. So inside of the execute section, you have a thing called n arguments. And this is essentially where we're going to save the information for the activity. So whenever they select, the coupon code is 10% or 15% or 25%, this is where that information is going to go and be stored, and it's going to be handed back to us whenever we're executing the activity server side. Next is a URL. So the URL has to be HTTPS, and with the URL, we specify that here inside of the configuration. And then on the other side, on the right-hand side here, we have a section where we essentially define our arguments. So if you think about this discount code, what's happening is incoming is the number of the percent that we'd like to have the coupon for, 10%, 15%, 25%, whatever. The part of the contract that we're making with Journey Builder is like, okay, you are going to give me the percent discount that you want, and I am going to give you a code, and that code is going to be a text code, right, that they're going to use to copy and paste, put in an email or whatever, right? And so this is where we define that. So the out arguments, or what will come out of this activity, is a discount code that is type text, there's a direction that's out, and then access is visible. And what that means is that other activities and can see it inside of Journey Builder. Cool. And so the way that the activity screen works, so now we're on the configuration section. So to make Journey Builder and the configuration as seamless as possible, we've integrated the configuration within Journey Builder, and we do that with an iframe. And so your actual configuration screen will be embedded inside of Journey Builder via an iframe. And the two will talk back and forth to one another over post messages. So the parent frame will post to the child frame and vice versa. The reason why we do an iframe like that is for security reasons. It's actually a really common pattern. YouTube and Facebook and a lot of other social sites use it. And so your iframe, your configuration screen that we'll show you here in a second, will actually be embedded inside of Journey Builder, and then it creates a completely seamless experience for customers. Next slide. Okay, so next is the activity configuration phase. So this is kind of like a real quick high-level overview. Again, GitHub link will show you all the different nitty-grittiness of this application. So just as an example flow, so your iframe is inside of Journey Builder, and whenever that iframe turns on, there's a series of like messages and talks that happen back and forth to one another. So the first is from the child iframe, which is your configuration screen, to Journey Builder. It says, hey, ready. And then your configuration, or I'm sorry, Journey Builder, back to your configuration screen will say init activity and then pass an object. So any information that you've stored will come back to you to rehydrate your object. And then after that, like if you wanted to get something like the entire journey for that is currently being executed within Journey Builder, you can say request interaction. You post that to the parent, and then the iframe posts back to you, the parent frame, Journey Builder posts back to you, requested interaction, and then passes you the journey inside of an object. And this kind of like communication keeps on going, right? So the child says like, hey, I'd like some information. And then the parent says, okay, well, here you go. And it passes back and forth. There's tons of stuff that can be passed back and forth. There's tokens so that you can reach out to APIs, and so on and so forth. So
Matt, did you want to cover the request inspector close, or should we just?
Oh, yeah. And so in our example, we also have request inspector close. So what that is we have a done button that's inside of our configuration. So we can tell Journey Builder like, oh, hey, this person is clicked done, and you can go ahead and dismiss my configuration. And so all of this is built so that your custom activity feels and looks like it's part of Journey Builder, which is really important for a seamless experience. So instead of the customer having to go like over to the point of sale system, go type some stuff, and then go back to your system and then like copy and paste a code or do some crazy thing, right? All of that is kind of built in, and this is just how that communication, how that phase happens. And so after they've configured the activity and they've dismissed the box and everything's all set and ready, and they've selected that they want a 15% discount, it's going to go through the phases for the journey to publish. So the marketer has now said like, okay, well, I've got my flow. They're getting a 15% off coupon. We're going to email it to them. We're going to wait 3 days. Then we're going to come back, see if anything happened. And if they abandon it, we're going to give them a 25% off coupon. So as the marketer hits that activate button in the top right-hand corner to say, go ahead and kick my journey off, it's going to go through this validation phase, or it's going to go through these phases. And so these phases are meant for every activity to say, okay, I've verified my configuration, everything's good to go, like we can proceed. And every activity on the canvas goes through this phase, and the custom activity is no different. So there's a post phase where it says, could you validate that this configuration is valid, that everything's good to go? And then your service returns back like an HTTP 200 empty message and says like, yep, good to go. And then the same thing with the publish phase. And so the reason why you'd want to tag into some of these events, so for validate, you could say like, well, I don't know how this happened, but somehow they entered a code that was like 150% off discount, and we're not handing out money. So like, no, I am not validating this, and you can return back an error. Similarly with the publish phase, like, so say you wanted to have your service know, like, I need to go ahead and start warming up some data, like, because I know that this journey is about to be kicked on and I need to kick off another process to start warming the data, then you can tag into that event as well. Cool. And then this is an example of what the execution phase looks like. So in the execution phase, Journey Builder will be reaching out to your activity with each individual contact. And this is an extremely truncated message here. It would also include the contact key. But Journey Builder reaches out to your activity. So in this case, with a post, to the execute parameter that you had specified in your configuration and says, in arguments, discount 15%. Then your service returns back, hey, here's your discount code. And it's able to, and so that's how that interaction happens. So this is pretty simple, but it's kind of this is the meat and potatoes of the activity essentially, right? You get back your in arguments that you had specified inside of the configuration. You also get the additional context of the specific contact that's going, and then you respond back with the information that you specified in your out arguments, in this case, the discount code, which is essentially your contract with Journey Builder. If you return an HTTP 200 for OK, the contact continues. If you return back an error code, the contact is ejected from the journey. So that means that the contact would not proceed down any other paths within the journey and it'll just be exited. Cool. And so I wanted to briefly touch on some new configuration options that are going to be available, or that are currently available, and some that will be available. So some new configuration options that we put inside of the, this is all in the GitHub example, that we put into the execute method is the ability to specify a timeout. So the amount of time that our service will wait for your service to respond back. So you can specify however many milliseconds you'd like, from 1 second to 100 seconds. The retry, so this is a number of times that we will retry your request. So if we get back a failure code, if we get back a timeout, we'll retry the request back to your service, and you can specify how many times that should happen, up to 5. And then coming in Q3, we're gonna have parallel execution. And this is actually really cool. So what this will allow you to do is to select the level of parallelism that you'd like for your custom activity. So within the journey, like, it currently takes 100 workers, give or take, max of 100 workers in most cases, that will be executing your activity at any point in time. And so that's 100 workers that will be reaching out to your service as contacts are flowing through their system. And so what Parallel does is it allows us to have those workers execute multiple requests in parallel. So if you specified a value of 2, then, like, of those 100 workers, each one would have 2 requests executing in parallel to your service at any given point in time. And this is a way for people to make their journeys more performant using the custom activity. And so that's a really big feature that's coming in Q3. Cool. And then just quickly wanted to cover some of the pitfalls of engineering that we see inside of the custom activity from a Journey Builder perspective. And so just wanted to briefly touch on some designing kind of APIs, tips and tricks. And so all of this is really geared towards this execution phase. So we want that execute method to be as fast as possible, right? So Journey Builder is waiting on your information before it can proceed the contact along the journey, right? So all of this has to happen synchronously. So if in our example, right, if you are promising a coupon code, well, we can't move on to the next thing until we have that coupon code, right? So all these steps have to be executed in sequence. So it's really important that each one of those steps executes as quickly as possible. And so these are guidelines and tips on how to make that happen. So if possible, it's always best to pre-compute data. So in our example, it actually would have been best, instead of having the 15% off discount code being executed in an activity, if we if this was some sort of user-driven behavior where it was an API, say like an API could be created that would allow the contact to go into the journey, that we'd pre-compute that discount code and provide it along with that API before it ever entered the journey. So if at all possible, like if there's a way that you can perform some of these activities before the journey begins, that's always best. Next is like asynchronous processing. So like, let's take this example again. So say that discount code, right? Like, so the way that your internal point of sale system works, because point of sale systems are crazy, is I'm going to issue some code, and then I have to go insert it 15 places into my point of sale system, right? Like into 15 different tables spread throughout my entire infrastructure, right? In that example, what we'd want to do is like just quickly return that code, right? And then asynchronously, so we get that HTTP 200 back with the data to Journey Builder immediately, right? And then asynchronously insert it into our POS system and do all the other downstream activities. So that way we're unblocking Journey Builder and then getting the code where it needs to go. Next is horizontally scalable. If you imagine like 100 workers working it, like essentially hitting that API just back to back to back. And if you were to specify parallel of like 2 or 5 or something like that, right? Like then it'd be 500 workers. It can be a lot of, it can be very taxing on your system. So we recommend using horizontally scalable solutions that can horizontally scale out your API layer to accept more requests. Heroku's actually really good at that. So you can specify more dynos. There's dynamic scaling that you can do that says like, oh, hey, my load's increasing. So go ahead and give me more dynos, and then it ramps up the number of servers, and then the second load goes down, it recognizes that and scales back down. And then the last thing is to optimize. So we recommend to conduct technical reviews or anything on your end to just make sure that the API is performant as possible before going into production. Cool. And then next, so the next thing that we recommend is to do load and performance testing. So we recommend testing tools like Apache JMeter or pick your flavor of API load testing tool. There's a ton of them off the shelf there. And so what you want to look for is you want to look for your service to be able to handle 150 plus concurrent requests, the tongue twister, and have your server log show that you're returning in less than 50 milliseconds. And so that would be like a really good service. And then you also want to have little to no degradation in performance whenever there's an increase in load, right? So you don't want to see, well, if I do one request, it takes 50 milliseconds, but if I'm trying to do 50 of them, now it takes like 12 minutes, right? Like you don't want to see that. That wouldn't be a good API. If you, so that would be a good API. And we recommend like scaling up just a little bit so that you can handle that load. And then if a room for improvement API, if you will, would be to handle 100 plus concurrent requests. And then if your server logs were to show like 100 milliseconds or more. And then we do realize that sometimes APIs, it might not be feasible or possible for this to happen for insert technical reason about your specific implementation. But these are just kind of general guidelines. So if it is possible to get that 200 response back as quickly as possible, that's just kind of what we recommend. Cool. And then for running in production, we recommend using Heroku's service, just because it's a simple, lightweight way to deploy your API. And it offers these things kind of right out of the box. So whenever your service is in production, you just want to make sure that you have monitoring available. So reliability, something that checks your error rates, like are you getting more errors than you expect? Is something going on? If your service is performing poorly, is somebody getting a text message or a PagerDuty alert, something like that? Availability, is your service available and available to be used? Is it up? Is it responsive? Is your HTTPS certificate invalid? Has it expired? So something that's monitoring your API from that perspective. And then performance, do you have having alerting on whether or not your service is degrading? Are any upstream services down? that could be affecting the performance of your API, etc. Because this is part of the marketing experience within Journey Builder, if your API is having an issue and there's an active running journey, it could affect contacts within those journeys. So we recommend making sure that you have like the proper reliability, availability, and performance, like wrap metrics and notifications around your service.
One thing to add to what Matt just said, that this is something that like it's important for you as a person that's involved in designing and building the custom activity to internalize, is that how fast your service responds back to Journey Builder is directly proportional and related to how fast the journey can execute contacts. So if your service takes 100 milliseconds, let's say that meant that Journey Builder could process like roughly 1 million contacts an hour. And if your service then takes like 1 second or 10 seconds, well, that means that it's like 10 times or 100 times slower. So that means Journey Builder can only process 100,000 contacts an hour, or like 10,000 contacts an hour. So we cannot stress enough how important it is to basically do the load testing and for reliability, availability, and performance. And one of the things that we most commonly see is that the service that Journey Builder calls, so your service, typically takes seconds to respond. And you can imagine that that has meaningful impact on how many contacts can Journey Builder process an hour. So that's a very important thing to stress. I think we're at the end of the presentation. One of the things that Matt and I talked about last night of doing is, all of you were kind enough to put a number of questions in the web form when you were signing up. So I think maybe one of the things we'll do now is Matt and I curated some of the questions that we thought were extremely relevant, but might have we tried to convey the answers through the slides, but we'll just go through them again. So Matt, do you want to just read some of the questions that people submitted, and then we'll just take them one at a time?
Yes, so I got some questions here from Gilda too. So one of them is, does this require Heroku to work, or just using Heroku for this example? Yes, we're just using Heroku for this example. You could point to any sort of execute. You can point your API anywhere that you want to. We just use Heroku because it's really easy to stand up and it's part of the example. As long as you have a valid HTTPS certificate. So that's really important, right? So go out to a certificate verifier to make sure that your HTTPS certificate works. Let's see. Does this require an API setup or a key in order to work?
I think this is in reference to when you're setting it up in the setup page on Marketing Cloud. I think the answer is when you're going through the setup flow, you're actually setting up a Journey Builder activity instead of an API. So that is one of the options. However, if you need to be calling an API, obviously you would go through the flow to set up an API.
Let's see. Okay, another question. Is it recommended to approach stack multiple custom activities within one node instance, or is it just simplification for the purposes of the training? So you can deploy it however you want, as long as you're load testing to make sure that it can handle the load. And I would look at load testing the two activities concurrently. For isolation purposes, if you can deploy them to different nodes, typically that would be ideal. But it all really depends on your implementation. If there's shared information between the two and caching that's available between the two that would make them more performant if they were on the same node, then I mean you can do that. Let's see other questions that we have. What should someone ask before building and considering a custom activity? So, Radha, do you want to take that one?
I mean, I'll give an answer, Matt. You should weigh in as well. I think it's really important to sort of internalize what Matt said, which is when someone approaches you and says, we need a custom activity, the first reaction should be, do we really need a custom activity, right? So going back to this example that we actually walked through here, if we need to have a coupon code for every customer, Matt mentioned Journey Builder has the ability for you to inject a contact into a journey via an API call. So like you have an external system that says, okay, Rade needs to be injected into a journey with a 15% coupon code. When your service makes a call into Journey Builder to say, please take Rade as a contact and put him in a journey, at that time, you could pass the information that there should be a discount code of 15%, and the text of the discount code also should be persisted along with Rade as a contact, right? So in that example, you eliminate the need to have a custom activity whose sole purpose is to reach to your internal point of sale system to get a 15% coupon discount for Rade after Rade already went into the journey and he reached the first activity in the example that we had. So I think it's really important to summarize. I think it's really important for the very first thing that you do when you're sort of reasoning over, do I need a custom activity, is to ask yourself, do I really need a custom activity? Can I accomplish the same thing without the need for a custom activity, just like the thing that I outlined? Besides that, Matt, any other thoughts?
No, I would just reiterate that in the example, like if you had on the example that's in the deck, it says newsletter. If it is possible, like you can also invoke journeys with data extensions. So if you can pre-populate like all the 15% off coupon codes inside of that data extension before you click the execute button, that's of course ideal. So before building a custom activity, like I would check to see if there's not a more creative way to do it, just because it's always going to be more performant.
Go ahead, Matt. Finish.
Oh no, that's it.
I was going to say there's a couple of things that there's a couple of other things that come to mind that I think are important for you to ask when you're designing a custom activity. The first thing is, like, what is the speed of the system that will expose the API that Marketing Cloud and Journey Builder will call? So this again goes back to like the things that Matt touched on in terms of optimization and thinking about, like if your external system, if your external point of sales, or if your internal point of sale system like is arcane and has many things that it needs to do in order to propagate the coupon code to, like, let's say that you're a retailer and you are in many geographies and you have to now go write that information that like Rade has a 15% coupon in like various parts of the point of sale system, and that takes a very long time. You should always think creatively about, okay, well, that might still take a long time and I cannot modify all of those sort of fundamental pieces of how the point of sale system is built, but can I do something like where I generate the coupon and I return the Journey Builder the coupon as soon as possible, and then asynchronously, right? Like I do all of the heavy lifting and time-consuming work. Because again, going back to this, remember that how fast your service responds when Journey Builder and Marketing Cloud call your service, how fast you respond back, what is that round trip, is directly proportional to how fast Journey Builder can go. And typically what we see is customers build a solution that is okay when the developer is sort of building the solution, but then when they put it in production and they want to process like millions and millions of contacts, then it doesn't scale, right? So the important thing to ask yourself is to, when you're designing a custom activity, is to ask yourself, what is the round trip time for getting the call from Journey Builder and then responding, and how can I further optimize that? And remember, right, like we live in a global economy, and that means that our code runs in depending on depending on which one of our infrastructure stacks you're in, right? Like maybe Journey Builder is the Journey Builder code that is invoking your service is somewhere on the East Coast of America. And so that means that if you're standing up a service that, like, I don't know, runs somewhere in Russia or somewhere else, right? Like you always have to think about, well, it takes physical time for the signals to propagate through the internet from one part of the globe to the other. And that obviously introduces latency. Matt, next question.
Cool. So we have a question regarding A/B testing on our roadmap.
Yeah. I think the question is do we have a plan to build something that is akin to A/B testing? And the answer to that is yes. We're actually actively working on a pilot program. So one of the things that I'd encourage you, if you're interested in this kind of functionality in Journey Builder, is to reach out to us, and we will, talk to you and consider if we can put you into our early adopters program. But this functionality is something that we're actively working on, and we're certainly hoping that we will have it in general availability for all customers sometime this year. Of course, global pandemics notwithstanding.
Cool. So next question, is Salesforce looking at creating a more seamless way to test custom activity work? So I can kind of speak to that a little bit. Within the example that's on Heroku, or I'm sorry, on GitHub, we do have the ability to, if it's running in localhost, we have a testing harness that will simulate some of the messaging back and forth between the iframe. So it'll make it a little bit easier to debug your activity. In addition, the example that's on GitHub is very, very thoroughly documented to try and make all the different communication points and touch points super simple to kind of understand. Let's see, what else do we have here? What does the reporting around custom activities look like? Does it show up in Journey Dashboard or in Datarama? Roddy, did you want to handle that?
Not at the moment. We understand that that is one of the areas of the system that we could improve, but at the moment the answer is no.
Cool. Another one. Do the API calls count towards a client's daily API limit?
As strange as it sounds, I actually work on Journey Builder and I don't know the answer. Matt, do you know the answer? Does anybody else on the call who's from the engineering team know the answer?
I do not. Andrew, do you know?
I can't say conclusively, but as far as I know, it does not count towards the limit.
Yeah. So we think it does not, but this is something that I think if you're seriously considering, you should probably reach the Salesforce's, right? Like whoever your contacts are, either the pre-sale team or the marketing team that the marketing contacts that you're working with, ask and clarify. But we think the answer is no.
Yeah.
Matt, next question.
Another one is how to use a response like the discount code in email. Is that with ANT script? So I did not mock that up in the example, but we can put that on the GitHub page of exactly what it would look like to put that inside of your email. I can get with the email team to kind of mock something up of like what that would look like to actually put in your email. But it would be part of like the data binding ANT script stuff. Let's see, can the JB activity be? Let's see. Are there any custom activities that connect with Sales Cloud?
So that's an interesting question. Matt and I had sort of read through this question last night and we were talking about it. So there's two answers to this question. The first answer is it is certainly possible for one to construct a system by which a custom activity can go and update some information in a Sales Cloud instance, right? But like if you think about it at a high level, there's Marketing Cloud, then there is a service that you would stand up, and then that service that you would stand up would be reached via the custom activity in Journey Builder, and then that service that you stood up that just got the call from Journey Builder with some information could turn around and make a call into Sales Cloud. But before anybody entertains something as exotic as that of a solution, we would highly recommend that you consider, right, like Journey Builder does have built in the Sales Cloud activity or the ability to update a campaign member and a few other things. If that is insufficient for the scenario that you have, I think it's probably best for you to reach out to Salesforce and describe your scenario before you embark on what I call an exotic implementation, where you stand up a service that is reached via the custom activity, such that that service that you stood up can then go and reach Sales Cloud. But those are the two answers to that question.
Cool. All right. This is actually a really good one. Okay. So the view of the Journey Builder activity index.html is called as a get when you load your activity, meaning that I can open the URL of that activity from anywhere in the outside world. What are some security best practices to secure this view, as there's not a session context provided at, I'm assuming that's like runtime. So that's a really good question. So there are things that are passed inside of the HTTP refer headers. I don't offhand know exactly what they are, but you can figure out from the browser is going to tack on the parent frame. So you can do a check on that and then nuke any request that isn't coming from has a refer of Journey Builder. Obviously, somebody can get around that. Depending on your implementation, let's see, you could have, if it's possible to do whitelisting for that service. So say that like the number of machines that are going to be executing or editing within Journey Builder is finite, right? So say it's internal to your specific company. You could whitelist just things from your VPN so that like outside traffic from the outside world can't get to it. You could have some sort of response get posted back with some sort of hash of JavaScript that loads if it had to be open to the public, like whenever that ready or that init activity happens, you could pass the information, tell it to load JavaScript in a secret location after like it's kind of validated that it's an actual correct call coming from Journey Builder. So there's a couple different things that you could do there. But that's a good question. And then we can, yeah.
I was just going to mention, I think obviously we only have an hour here and we're coming up on the hour, but we now have the GitHub sample, only 48 hours ago, we did not, but now we do have a sample that we're very proud of. And I highly encourage you to basically go to our sample on GitHub and, like open an issue, or, there's like various ways to engage with us through the code in GitHub. We're going to be actively looking at the code, and we have some improvements that we're going to make that we know of. So let's just continue the conversation and these kinds of things that you would like to see through the code and through the sample is the thing that I wanted to call out.
Yeah, there's also on the execute method, we do have a method for a shared secret being stored within Journey Builder to digitally sign requests using JWT. So whenever we hit your service, like there's essentially a hash that you can use to validate with your private key that will validate like, yep, this actually did come from Journey Builder because it was signed over there, based off prime numbers and modulos and all that fun stuff. So there's the ability to do that as well. So that way somebody can't just randomly execute against your API.
All right, let's take one last question.
This is Gilda. We only have about 3 minutes. We only have about 3 minutes left on the call, so I think we should really start wrapping things up. And this call is being recorded, and we will make sure that we share this out with everyone that's attended. And the other thing I want to add is we've had a lot of questions of folks wanting to know if Rade and Matthew, if they'll be able to get a copy of this deck. Do you mind answering that question? And the other thing is, Rade, I know there's a survey that's going to go out, and you wanted to kind of get some folks on this call to participate in the survey.
Yep.
So in the last 2 minutes, do you want to just answer those two questions? And thanks again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So yes, I'll speak to those two questions. I'll start by echoing what Gilda said, which is I think I mentioned this at the beginning. When we set off to do this, we thought that there will be about 15 people who are interested. So we are incredibly humbled by how many of you have expressed interest in using Journey Builder and then extending Journey Builder with functionality that Marketing Cloud does not offer out of the box. So with that said, we will make this presentation available. That's the one answer to the question. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is we definitely want to understand better what you want to do and what you want to build with custom activities, what kind of solutions you're envisioning or you were hoping that custom activities could be used for. So please, 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 when we send you the after seminar survey, please take the 5 minutes to respond to the questions, because clearly you were interested enough to come and hear about custom activities. It would be immensely helpful to us to further improve the product in this area if you could take the time and give us some more feedback so we know exactly how to think about the space, what to prioritize first, and so on and so forth. So again, please take the survey. We're going to look through every response ourselves and take it to heart and take action based on it. Gilda, did I cover everything that you?
And the presentation?
Yes,
Yes.
I did mention the presentation. We will make it available. Yes, we will make the presentation available. And just when we make the presentation available, for each of the slides, there's a sort of a talk track, which is basically in the notes section. There's various links to material that is either on the public documentation pages on Salesforce or additional text that we just felt wasn't appropriate to put on the slide itself, but it further clarifies things. So we will not only send the slides, but we will actually send the notes with each of the slides that we built. And then lastly, I should say that as Gilda mentioned, this is recorded, and our plan is to actually well, first, we're doing this again. So if you wanted to attend one more time today, we will do another one of these later today. But we're basically gonna do an edit and sort of all the questions that have been asked, and we will we will post basically a recording of this presentation in addition to providing the slides. So we're gonna do that as well. And with that, it's 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
I think, again, thank you all for attending. It's been super fun to kind of get a chance to talk to you about some of the work that we do every day. Please engage with us at the GitHub sample. And Gilda, did you want to say anything for wrap up?
No, this pretty much covered it. We really appreciate everyone that attended. We had well over 250 attendees. So thank you again, and we will be in touch. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.